What are you? Are you an actor, a performer, or just a personality that does everything?
Well, it's an interesting question, that. Of those three, I'm an actor. But I'm also an Englishman. I'm also gay. I'm also born in Lancashire. I'm also a son. I'm not a father yet. I've a number of things that make up me. But what I do for a living is act. I don't like being a personality. I don't quite know what that means. But and I certainly don't like being a celebrity. And I don't think that's really a part of being an actor. But it's forced on you when you're by studios who want to buy a lot of rather cheap publicity, and they send actors out doing things that they wouldn't normally choose to do in order to advertise the product. But there we go.
But you're thrilled to be here with me.
Certainly am, yes.
The reason I say you're a personality, there are few actors who can entertain in real life. They can be brilliant people with a script, but everybody loves to get you on their chat show because they know you'll be great value.
That's very kind of you to say so, and that is something I've had to learn to do. I mean, since very early days in growing up in Lancashire, where I was a frightened little boy. I was shy. I was bullied. I was the runt, really, and not very clever, not very emotionally developed, no good at sport. The only thing I seemed to be any good at was somehow getting up on a stage where I could feel confident because I was speaking somebody else's words. I knew when I was going to walk. I knew what was coming next, and there was nothing to be frightened of. In those circumstances, I can be as brave and outlandish as the worst of them. But for the rest of life, I was still the boy, even in my teens and 20s and 30s, who really didn't like going to parties very much, and if I did, would sit in the corner and hope it would be over soon. Self-confidence is what I've had to learn as an actor, and the only way I could get to be self-confident was by acting. And I've had to teach myself to be any good at being myself, so-called. You know, if you go on the David Letterman show in the States or the Jay Leno show, these big chat shows where you are required to be funny, where you are talked to in advance and say, what funny things happened while you were making X-Men 3? And my mind goes totally blank and think, well, if you want someone to be funny, get a professional comedian. I'm not funny. All I can do is hopefully be myself, and myself is really talking rather seriously about my work, not making jokes about it, because I think it's a serious thing that I do for a living. So there we go. If I'm any good at being on these chat shows, it's sweet of you to say that I am, then it's something I've had to learn. And I rehearse, and I watch them and work out how best to do them, and so I take it rather seriously.
Would you prefer not to do them if you had a choice?
I certainly would, yes.
So are you still as shy as you were when you were a child?
Inside there's yes, I probably am. It's been the best thing about being a success as an actor is that I can now go into a room, and because I know quite a few people are likely to know something about me and will talk to me, I don't feel anywhere near as frightened as I used to in those circumstances.
Where do you think your lack of confidence came from? What happened to make you worried about yourself?
Well, it wasn't that I looked odd. I wasn't a chubby little boy, and I didn't have a funny-looking face. I think probably it was that, quite early on I realised that I was different, and my difference centred around my sexuality. And when I was growing up, to make love to anyone of your own gender was actually against the law. You could be put in prison for it. Well, there's nothing like that for inhibiting a boy's self-confidence. And, I couldn't go to a party and be myself at the risk of someone hitting me and reporting me to the police, literally. So that tends to make you quiet. And before those days, when I was coming to terms with being gay, not a word we used, queer is what we said we were, because everybody else called us queer. You don't get to talk to your parents about it, or your other people in authority in your life who you might trust, like friends of the family or people at church or Sunday school or at school. You're left rather on your own. And if you're on your own, then you're not very confident when you're not on your own.
So you felt like an alien visiting a planet that you didn't really understand?
I felt quite happy about what I was. It was the rest of the world that seemed to be odd, not me. It didn't feel odd to be gay. Other people kept telling me I was odd, so there was something wrong with the world. So I did at least gain that amount of self-confidence. And then when I met other gay people, mainly at university, but all, principally when I became an actor in the British theatre, where there were fortunately quite a lot of people who were gay, then life got relatively easy, and so it's remained since. But it was hard going, and still is hard going for a lot of people.
I still take calls on phone-ins from people who are struggling with it today. Do you think that coming out business will ever be easy for people?
Well, it gets easier as long as the more at ease the rest of society becomes. When you come out, you have a series of problems. You come out, you're ready to come out, you've had enough of lying, you want to be honest, you want to join the human race, and you tell somebody, and that person says, "Oh, thank you for telling me. That's how wonderful that you shared something so important to you. Thank you very, very much indeed." Now, you're not going to tell your dad, are you? This is your mother speaking. And when you tell your dad, he said, "That's fine with me, son. I love you as much as ever. I always suspected this, but look, you're not going to tell your brother and sister, are you?" And you tell your siblings, and they say, "You're not going to tell your cousins." And everyone's got a problem about somebody else. So it's a long journey coming out. It isn't easy. It takes forever.
Absolutely, and congratulations to you for coming out and being so open about it. If there aren't people on the TV and in the media who shout about it, I suppose it will never be accepted, and the more people that do come out and are open about it, the more accepted it will become. Talking of things controversial, I want to talk about the Da Vinci Code, which is one of the films you did in the last few years, which attracted amazing press. Do you think it deserved it?
Like everybody else I know who's read Dan Brown's novel, you can't put it down. It's a page-turner. It might have a few grammatical mistakes, and stylistically it may not be exactly J.R.R. Tolkien or William Shakespeare, but it's a rattling good yarn, and I believed almost every word of it. So that's how clever the storytelling is. And from what I've seen of the film, and I've seen quite a lot of it now when I've been adding the voice to certain scenes that needed to be tidged about with before they're shown to the public, Ron Howard has matched Dan Brown in excitement, and it's a really, really well-made, exciting film. But it is really a film of ideas, as possibilities of... are we going to accept that a 33-year-old rabbi should not be married when all the other rabbis at the time were? I'm talking about Jesus Christ. Well, then perhaps it's not too unlikely a fact that Jesus and Mary were so much in love that they wanted to have a baby, and did, and were married. Well, you know, I've said it, and the sky's not fallen down, and nothing's come out, and there are no bolts from the blue, and the world is carrying on, and everyone would think, to hear some people's reaction, that it was going to pull the rug from underneath what's good about Christianity, and of course it doesn't. But it does contradict the traditional teachings. But then the traditional teachings of the church aren't always quite as traditional as you'd think. The church has changed its mind on a number of matters. And that's one of the points of Dan Brown's book, is that the Christian church that we know was organized not by the original founders of the church, Jesus and his disciples, but subsequent political leaders who were using Christianity for their nefarious means. Well, not nefarious, trying to keep their nations cohesively together and so on. So it's appropriate that we should examine these religions which affect people's lives so strongly. I mean, when we've got a president of the United States who tells you he consults God when he's deciding policy, when you have a prime minister who says, well, I don't want to be judged by the electorate, I want to be judged by God at the end of the day on whether I should have invaded Iraq, when there is fighting clearly on political and religious grounds in the Middle East, when Jews and Muslims and Christians really are so antagonistic, it seems, to each other, isn't it appropriate that the rest of us, and I am not any of those three things, I'm not an agnostic, I'm an atheist, isn't it appropriate that we should have an opinion on religion, and that Dan Brown, if he wants to, should write a work of fiction about it, and we should now make a film about it? No reason at all. And the world accepts that, actually. And the Vatican has kept very, very quiet. It knows. It's just a bit of fiction. But there's enough for the rest of us of truth about it to just make us prick up our ears and listen and relish, really.
Having said that, of course, religion's taken much more seriously in the States. How did the film go down over there?
Well, it's one of the alarming things for a Brit to go to America and realise that it is very much a Christian country. It was founded by people, who had strong religious views and left Europe in order to continue leading their lives on very strict religious ways. So it's not surprising that so many of them believe in God, and that there's a big move in the Bible Belt of the southern states of the United States to teach the idea that the world was created in 7 days by an old man with a beard. Ooh, dear. Well, there it is, but it is in that country that Dan Brown, an American, has published the Da Vinci Code, which is not yet in paperback. It is still in hardback.
When you're offered something like this, do you ever consider the implications of the reaction to it and how that may impact your future and how people perceive you? Does it matter to you whether it's a political film or a religious film or whatever subject, if it causes offence?
No. Oh, it causes offence? Oh, good Lord, everything causes offence. Someone walking towards me with a mobile phone is offensive to me. I want them to join the human race and be in the same street as I am and risk looking me in the eyes and falling in love. I don't want them in a world of their own. But yeah, I don't say there should be law against phones in public places. Oh no, you couldn't run your life on worrying whether you were causing offence. And you mustn't hurt anybody with your words, unless it's because you feel so strongly that they believe something that you cannot countenance. You have an argument then. There's the films I make, the plays I'm in, are the films and plays that I would like to go and see. That's my first judgment. Would I like to see this film? And if the answer is yes, then I say, well, now, is this a part that I want to play? Is it going to be nicely difficult? That's usually a test for me. Am I going to find it... Is it going to make me better as a result, as an actor? Am I going to find out something about acting? If it's just repetition, I don't want to do it. But I don't worry that it might offend other people. And sometimes I'm glad to think that it might. I mean, when I was in the play, the first production ever of Martin Sherman's play Bent, which was about gay people in Dhaka, which then went round the world on stage and was later filmed, and I was also in that. Then I was proud that film might disturb people and upset them, and thereby hopefully make them think, because what we were dealing with was a story that had remained hidden for too long, the way that gay people were as badly treated, and maybe worse, in the labour camps of the Third Reich than the other unfortunates who were incarcerated there. So sometimes you do want to stir it up, yeah.
So provoking a reaction is far more important than not provoking a reaction.
Ken Dodd says that his aim at the end of a very long evening when he's made people laugh is that he should have moved people's perception about the world even that much, and my fingers are only a couple of millimetres apart there. Well, if that's his aim, it's my aim too. I would like people to see... hear and watch the story that I'm helping to tell and have their lives changed by it. There needn't be an instant conversion to any point of view, that's not the point, but just they've learned something, they've discovered something about the world they didn't know before, or about themselves, and there will always be that need. The first thing you do with a child to bring it into the human race is to tell it stories. And kids sit open-mouthed and beg you to tell them stories. And what are they doing? They're exploring the world through fiction, through images and images that are sometimes painted with words and funny voices and characters, and that's true. Kids like it and adults like it, and it's not just the kid in us that likes it. It's we need it.
I'm curious to know what kind of music you listen to. Are you passionate about music?
No, I don't know how my gramophone works, and that gives it away, doesn't it?
Gramophone?
Exactly. I don't know how the record player works. I don't know. No. Live music, yeah, I'll go almost anywhere for live music. I went to see the Stones recently in Seattle. I met Gary Barlow, who's invited me to go and hear Take That when they're reconstituted. I love going to the festival hall and hearing any sort of piano music. I'm distraught that Ronnie Scott's is closed at the moment, the jazz club in London. So any live music I love, but recorded music I do have a problem with, because I feel you have to listen to music. Stop and listen. Everybody else seems to be able to get on with their lives and have the music on. Well, I don't know how they do it. And I go into restaurants and people say, oh, I love this Madonna track. And what? Madonna? That's Madonna? It's just all Muzak to me. I've never developed the ear for recorded music. And so if I play music, not on 78s anymore, but I do sit down and listen to it. If I come across music I like on radio, I will listen to it, but I won't just have it on.
All right, we'll leave music and go back to acting. It seems to me, you're quite unique. There aren't many British actors that make it big time in America, really, are there? Why are you so special?
Steady on. Or don't tell Anthony Hopkins you've just said that to me. Or Mike Gambon, or, John Hurt.
There aren't many, though, are there?
There are quite a few oldies. But, there are good old parts. Gandalf, 7,000 years old. That's a good part. But so somebody's got to play them. What are you going to do? To put young people in a beard, or have someone who knows what they're doing? So it's all luck. And anyone who tells you that luck isn't involved in our business is a liar, or they misunderstood how it works. I don't know how I got Gandalf. I think, although they denied, that it was offered to Sean Connery, who perhaps didn't like the idea of going to work in New Zealand for a year. I don't know. And Tony Hopkins, I think, was also offered it. And it came my way, and I don't quite know why. It could have easily gone to other wonderful British actors. But it didn't, and my life has changed absolutely as a result, because I am now known by an awful lot of people who've enjoyed those the films in the trilogy, but also known by people who employ actors, that more crucially, I'm thought to be reliable. I can still stand up and I can learn the lines, and I don't cause any fuss. Well, that's something with an actor. So I'm a well-behaved little lad, really. So,
you don't cause any fuss, fall over the furniture or anything.
I don't cause any fuss. and I've learned how to do the job after a number of years at it. And when I made my first big film, which was Richard III, a film that I helped to write, adapt Shakespeare's words and produce and act in and put together, I sort of joined the film industry for the first time and was taken seriously. But to prepare for that, to prepare for being in front of the camera convincingly, I was in a number of films that people thought I was crazy for doing. I played a very small part in an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, and other movies in Hollywood, very tiny parts. I was in an odd Western, playing a Yorkshire rapist in a cowboy hat. But I was doing all that to find out what it was like to be in front of the camera. So I've kept learning. But now I can do it. So if you can do it and you're my age and there are old parts, well, you're going to be considered. So there's nothing special about it.
What is the skill to being a great actor from an average actor? What do you do that makes you better? Is it bringing it in, being more subtle?
Well, probably playing great parts.
No. So you can be the best actor in the world. If it's the wrong script, you'll still be rubbish.
Of course. And I won't give you the examples from my career, but there are plenty of them. And, come Oscar time, it's the parts that win the awards, not the actors. Well, they have to be well acted, but it's the parts. So there you go, and actors know that. You play the best parts, you might be considered to be the best actor. And why would you want to play parts that weren't any good, if you had a choice in the matter? But greatness, what is a great acting? You sort of know it when you see it, and on the whole, I think of the theatre great acting, and I think it's an ability really to entertain a large number of strangers in a room, and and tell them a story in such a way that they all go out not just feeling that they've had their money's worth, but they have had their lives, I don't know, altered a little bit. I mean, but then it would be the play that did that. It would be the whole experience. It wouldn't just be the one actor, you know. I don't know. Maybe we say, certainly of painters, that a great painter you might define is the painter that makes you see the world differently. Now, L.S. Lowry, the favourite English painter, modern painter, amongst the public is rather looked down on by the arts establishment. Well, they're wrong, because now you can go out and look at a crowd and all you can say about it is, it's exactly like an L.S. Lowry painting. Well, he told you that. Nobody else had pointed it out before. Not even Bruegel knew that a crowd behaved like that. You watch a crowd going to a football match, they are behaving like a crowd does in a Lowry painting. That's greatness. Now, if an actor can do a little bit of that in his way, perhaps that would be a definition of greatness.
Do you prefer the intimacy of a theatre? Do you prefer the immediacy of being able to entertain an audience, or is it quite nice to be able to do a retake if you do it wrong?
I find it easier these days to work in a very small theatre. I've just been working in the Dunmar Theatre in London, which only seats about 200 people, and you can give there a cinematic performance, which that is a performance that doesn't select. The actor doesn't tell the audience what to look at, just does the performance, just is the character, and the audience have to lean forward and make up their minds as to what they think and look at whatever they want to. If you're in a big theatre, you have to start waving a handkerchief in your arms around and saying, "Oh, me, I'm speaking now, and now I will tell you something about the character." Well, that's another sort of acting, and it's a different style of acting. On the whole, these days, I prefer to work in small theatres and in front of the camera. But the difference between acting on stage and film is really one of scale. And you know, you 4 months making a movie, doing a show 8 times a week. You can't do a show 8 times a week until you've spent an awful lot of time preparing for it. And so when you're rehearsing a play, it's a little bit like filming a film. You suddenly land on a moment, you say, got it, think I understand that. That's the moment you want the camera to be turning. And so there are connections. When you're filming, it does feel like you're rehearsing. And when you're rehearsing, it feels a little bit like filming. But then when you have to put it all together, and you get in front of an audience, well, then it's something else altogether. And that's why, on the whole, actors who do both will, I think, always tell you that for the real visceral thrill, it's the live performance where anything can happen, and where you don't do this what you did last night. You do something different for this group of people. Live theatre, not dead theatre, not repetitive theatre. Each performance is a new take, as it were, in film terms. So, but there's no reason if you can work in one medium, you should be able to work in another. Although, you know, often film actors come a cropper on the stage because they don't know about just making sure they can be heard and seen. They don't quite know how to present themselves. And film actors don't always know about walking, because when did you last see a pair of feet in a film? Film acting is usually about the face. If you sit in the stalls of a theatre, well, the first thing you see is the feet, actually. You have to look up at the rest of the body, and you have to work with your full body on stage. But then it's all acting. And on radio, here we are, I'm gesticulating, wasting my time because no one listening can see it, you see. They don't, but that, I love acting for the microphone on radio, because it's reducing everything just to the voice. So it's all acting, and it's all related, and it's all difficult, and all very rewarding. Mm.
Is it a bit frustrating when you're doing a film 3 or 4 months away and you're waiting around days on end and then you do your bit? Or is that just part of the job? No job is wonderful, is it, all the time?
Well, it depends where you are. When I did X-Men 2 in Vancouver, in British Columbia, one of the most beautiful areas in the world, I was there for 15 weeks and I only worked 15 days. So I was on one perpetual holiday. It was wonderful. I made a film you never heard of called Alfred the Great way back in the 60s in Galway in Ireland, and they went there. Clive Donner went there because he wanted the Irish mist wiping all the colour from the palette of this story from the Dark Ages. And it was the best summer that Galway's ever had. So day after day, we opened up the curtains in the morning saying, "Oh, we can't go to work today. It's sunny." So that, don't feel sorry for actors on the whole. For actors in films on the whole, pretty well looked after. They're staying for free in a rather nice hotel, and they've got per diem, and they're surrounded by their mates, and they may be miles from home, which may be a disadvantage, but it's not too bad. And it is a matter of discipline when you finally get into the studio and you finally get in front of the camera, and it can be frustrating waiting around all day for that moment when you will deliver your performance, because you're about to deliver something for posterity. Immortality is within your grasp. Are you going to be up to it? It's a dreadful responsibility. In the theatre, you give a duff performance, say a line badly, there's another night to come, we'll be all right. But in film, you can take it again, but you've got to be able to deliver, and the clock's ticking over, and that is, I find that nerve-wracking. And there's that word, the best film actors are those who can relax and just not worry about all the pressures and just effortlessly be themselves through the character that they're playing.
Is life good for you now? You're a big star, an international star, movie star, theatre star. You must get recognised everywhere you go. Do you enjoy that, or would you rather be more private?
I didn't become an actor to be famous. I really didn't. I didn't become an actor to be rich. And very late in the day, I suppose, at past pensionable age, I am, compared with most people, famous and rich. So they're big bonuses, huge bonuses. I can travel first class because I can afford to. I love that. It's the one big luxury in my life. But I would hate to be such a person who had to live in a castle with a moat and security guards. That sort of film star life, it must be absolutely dreadful. And I don't think many of them can cope with it. And Hollywood is littered with the corpses of people who have not been able to cope with fame at that sort of intense level. But for me, to walk down the road and for some kid to go wide-eyed because they've just seen Gandalf in the flesh, I have to explain to them that I'm not really Gandalf, and they seem to understand that, rather as I understood when I was a kid going to see Father Christmas in the shop, that he wasn't really Father Christmas. The real Father Christmas was busy getting ready for Christmas. And I have to explain that Gandalf doesn't sign autographs. But it's very alluring that at my age, I'm doing something which entertains all the generations. That is genuinely thrilling. And I don't have children of my own, but there are an awful lot of kids in the world who think of me as their granddad or their great-granddad. Partly, and that's very, very sweet. I was in New York on September the 11th, 2000 and whatever it was, when the planes went into the Twin Towers, and the following day I walked down to Ground Zero with some friends, and the air was stinking of concrete and God knows what. It got stuck in the back of your throat, and it was as awful as you could imagine. And the streets were empty, except for little knots of social workers and police who were sitting around having a well-earned cup of tea. And as I just got to Ground Zero, there was a little group of black police from the New York Police Department, and one of them shouted out, "Hey, Magneto!" And I don't know what that story tells, but that's what my life is like now. I can be going about my business and being involved in something as devastating as that event, which has changed all our lives. And there's a man who I'll never meet again, who I didn't know I knew, who knew who I was. And that just makes me feel quite warm inside. But the real job continues of taking somebody else's words and making them believable for the audience, whether they're coming to see a film or a play. And I dare say I shall go on doing that as long as people ask me to.
Well, we hope so. And the great thing about you is I don't think you've got anything to prove now. I can't imagine anything worse than being 22 and being the biggest star in the world.
Yes, I agree. Absolutely. And my life and my career has all been about gaining confidence, getting rid of that shyness, being able to stand up in public. And now, you see, initially I could only stand up in public if it was on a stage and I'd got grease paint on and I was speaking somebody else's words and I was disguised. Then I learned how to be myself on stage and use myself and not be disguised, and I don't wear stage makeup anymore. But now, better still, my self-confidence is almost total, because now I can speak openly about being gay, which I found so difficult for so long. I can go into any situation and be Ian McKellen. That's the way it should be.
Let's talk about the Oscars, because that's got to be something that you never forget, that feeling of standing in front of all those people that you've watched in the movies. I can't imagine even wanting to be part of it. It's so American, ridiculous and over the top. Is it great fun or not?
Well, it isn't. I would hate to have to do it every year, but it isn't given to actors to do it every year. But you know, I've been to a lot of odd places. I've been to Buckingham Palace a few times, and the thrill of that is seeing how it works. How do they do it? Oh, that's how they do it. Oh, look what they do. And it's the same with going to the Oscars. Oh, that's how it's done. Well, I'm sorry to disappoint you if it is a disappointment, perhaps not to you, but you go to the Oscars and you sit there for a long time, and most of the evening is not the ceremony. Most of the evening is waiting for the ceremony to restart, because interspersing the broadcast of the Oscars on American television is the commercials, which pay for the program, which is why it's there. All these people want to advertise their products in the company of very famous actors and glamorous people in general. And so I'm watching how it all works and seeing people at close quarters. And most people at the Oscars are not having a very good time, unfortunately, because they're very nervous. And if they're caught up on stage, they don't quite know what to do. And of course all those actors who never appear in public normally, having to make a perilous walk down some stairs from the back of the stage. You can always pick out the theatre actors. Theatre actors rather like coming down a pair of stairs. They know what it's about, but film stars, no, they're very nervous about it. So there's a lot of tension in the air, and oddly enough, a lot of boredom. And it goes on forever and ever, and really what you're waiting to do is to get to the parties afterwards. But then you can't get to the parties until you've been photographed a million times. So it's people at work, really. They're working, but it's not really what they want to do for a living, because what they do for a living is make movies.
Am I right in thinking that you just believe showbiz is nonsense and it's all about actually doing it, making the movies?
Yes, well, I mean, show business that's right, business. And in business you advertise your product. And who's going to advertise the movies? It's not the producers who have to go out on the road chatting about themselves and about things that have nothing to do with the film in question, but about private lives and so on. It's the poor old actors, and they don't get paid for doing it. You know, they're just. It's quite a recent development. Laurence Olivier didn't give interviews, and he was a big movie star and he was a big theatre star. When did you last read an interview with Paul Scofield, the greatest actor of his generation, who won an Oscar? Didn't happen. He didn't have to do it, or he refused to. Alec Guinness, when did he give an interview? I'm giving interviews. I went to Berlin to advertise Richard III, and I gave 75 interviews in 3 days. It's ridiculous. But it is the business side of it. And, of course, you do want people to see your films.